The communications center at Fort Bragg was supposed to be restricted to active duty personnel only, but there she was, a woman in civilian clothes operating advanced encryption equipment with the kind of expertise that takes decades to develop. Army Colonel Sarah Mitchell watched from the doorway as she configured each system with mechanical precision. "Ma'am, you're not authorized to access that equipment," she called out. The woman didn't look up, didn't pause in her work. "I know," she replied quietly, continuing to adjust the frequency modulators. That's when Mitchell noticed something that made her blood run cold. The Joint Special Operations Command facility at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, operated under protocols so strict that even veteran intelligence officers needed multiple clearances just to access the building. The communications center, located in the facility's most secure section, required biometric scanning, key card authorization, and escort by cleared personnel, which made the presence of an unauthorized civilian all the more impossible. Colonel Sarah Mitchell had been heading to her office after a routine intelligence briefing when movement in the communications center caught her peripheral vision. Through the reinforced glass window, she could see someone working at one of the specialized stations where only the most sensitive equipment was operated. Mitchell stopped, her 18 years of military intelligence experience telling her something was very wrong. The woman appeared to be in her early 40s with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a regulation bun. She wore civilian clothes, dark pants, and a simple gray sweater that suggested academic work rather than military operations. Her movements as she worked on the advanced communication array were smooth and practiced, each action deliberate and precise, but it was the equipment itself that made Mitchell's stomach drop. Even from the doorway, she could recognize the distinctive profile of a SINCGAR-SRT-1794 tactical radio system, one of the most classified communication platforms in the military arsenal. These radios weren't just restricted, they were compartmentalized, tracked, and monitored with the same attention given to nuclear launch codes. Mitchell entered the communications center, her footsteps echoing off the tile floor. The woman didn't acknowledge her presence, continuing to calibrate the radio's encryption protocols with the kind of methodical attention that spoke of deep familiarity with the system. "Ma'am, you're not authorized to access that equipment," Mitchell called out, her voice carrying the authority that had commanded respect from intelligence analysts in 4 different combat zones. She didn't look up, didn't pause in her work. Her hands continued their precise movements, adjusting each component to exact specifications before moving to the next system. "I know," she replied quietly, continuing to program the frequency sequences. The casual admission hit Mitchell like a physical blow. In her 18 years of military service, she had never encountered someone who openly acknowledged unauthorized access to classified equipment while continuing the very activity they were not permitted to perform. "Then, you need to step away from that system immediately and explain how you gained access to this facility." "I walked in," she said, using specialized software to configure the radio's crypto keys with expert precision. Mitchell felt her jaw clench. The woman's tone was conversational, almost pleasant, as if they were discussing weekend plans rather than a serious breach of military security. "Ma'am, this is a restricted area. That equipment requires top-secret clearance and SCIF access." "Yes," she interrupted, still not looking up. "Sensitive compartmented information facility. I'm familiar with the security requirements." The fact that she knew the terminology for the highest levels of security clearance only made the situation more surreal. Mitchell quickly scanned the communications center to ensure they were alone, then activated the room's electronic lock to prevent interruption. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows this communication array needs to be perfectly configured in the next 3 hours." Mitchell watched as she began testing the system's range capabilities with the kind of meticulous attention she'd only seen from Master Signal's intelligence officers with decades of experience. Her movements were economical, purposeful, and absolutely professional. "That doesn't answer my question." "It's the only answer that matters right now." Mitchell had dealt with foreign intelligence operatives, double agents, and uncooperative sources, but she'd never encountered someone who projected such calm competence while openly defying military authority. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Who are you, and how did you gain access to this equipment?" The woman finally looked up, meeting her gaze directly. Her eyes were blue-green, almost turquoise, and they held a steadiness that Mitchell had only seen in combat veterans who'd operated at the highest levels of classified missions. "Colonel Mitchell," she said, using her name, though she hadn't introduced herself. "Before you make any calls or sound any alarms, you might want to check the deployment log for this specific communication system." The fact that she knew her name sent an immediate chill down Mitchell's spine. She was operating under multiple levels of classification, and her presence at this facility wasn't publicly acknowledged. "How do you know my name?" "The same way I know you've been wondering why this particular array hasn't been properly updated in 6 months." Mitchell felt the ground shift beneath her. The woman was right. She had been concerned about the software updates for several systems in their inventory, including this specific radio, but that information was buried in classified reports that required general-level clearance to access. "The deployment log for this system is classified." "Terminal 12, access code Bravo 44 Charlie," she said, returning her attention to the radio's interface. "Password is your father's middle name, followed by the year you graduated from the Defense Language Institute." Mitchell stared at her in shock. The access codes she'd just recited were known to fewer than 4 people in the entire Army, and they were changed weekly through a protocol that required direct authorization from Joint Special Operations Command. "That's impossible." "Terminal 12, Colonel. Check the log." Against every instinct and protocol she'd learned in 18 years of military service, Mitchell moved to the communication center's computer terminal and entered her access codes. The system accepted her credentials and displayed the main menu for classified communication systems. She typed in the access code the woman had provided. The system immediately displayed a file she'd never seen before. SINCGARSRT1794, Serial A7739, Special Operations Deployment Record. Mitchell's eyes widened as she read the information on screen. System status, active. Classified deployment, assigned, user, redacted, service record, 247 successful intercepts, maximum range achievement, 89 kilometers, last update, 6 months, 8 days, next scheduled deployment, classified, update authorization, level 6 clearance required. Mitchell read the data twice, trying to process what she was seeing. 247 confirmed intelligence intercepts with a maximum range of nearly 90 kilometers. The longest confirmed tactical radio intercept on record was just under 95 kilometers, achieved by NSA operators using similar equipment. But it was the update record that made her blood run cold. The system hadn't been properly updated in over 6 months. Yet, according to the deployment schedule, it was needed for an operation in the near future. "This is impossible," Mitchell muttered, though she was beginning to question what was possible anymore. "What's impossible?" the woman asked, continuing her meticulous calibration routine. "The intercept record for this system. No one achieves consistent signals intelligence at 89-kilometer range. The technical variables alone. Atmospheric ducting, ionospheric reflection, terrain masking," she recited without looking up from her work. "Signal propagation at extended range requires real-time atmospheric analysis and adaptive frequency management." Mitchell felt the world tilt slightly. She was discussing signals intelligence at extreme range with the casual precision of someone who had performed these operations countless times under live combat conditions. "You're talking about intercepts that require technical precision beyond what most people consider possible." "Yes, the user file is completely redacted." "I know. If this is your system, then you're someone whose existence is classified at levels above my current clearance," she said calmly. "Someone whose operations are compartmentalized to protect both national security and the individuals involved." Mitchell stared at the computer screen, then at the woman who was methodically calibrating what was apparently her personal communication system. Everything she thought she understood about military operations, about clearance levels, about who was authorized to operate in this facility was crumbling. "What's your real name?" "Today?" "I'm Rebecca Torres, civilian contractor specializing in advanced communication systems maintenance." She held up a diagnostic tool. "Which is exactly what I'm doing. And tomorrow I'll be whoever needs to be behind this radio when the intercept has to be made." The cryptic response was clearly all the information she was going to receive. Mitchell found herself facing a decision that could define the remainder of her military career. She could follow standard protocol, call security, and create an incident that would likely result in congressional hearings and career-ending investigations. Or she could trust her instincts, which were telling her that this woman represented something far beyond her understanding or clearance level. "Rebecca Torres," she said finally, "for the next few hours, why are you really here?" Rebecca set down her diagnostic equipment and looked at her with those unsettling turquoise eyes. "Because this communication array needs to be perfect for an operation that officially isn't happening to intercept intelligence that officially doesn't exist." "What kind of operation?" "The kind where missing the signal means American operatives don't come home." Mitchell felt a familiar chill, the same sensation she'd experienced before high-risk intelligence operations, where lives hung in the balance. Rebecca spoke about extreme range signals, interception, with the quiet confidence of someone who had operated at the highest levels of classified missions. "Are you telling me there's a black operation plan that requires—" "I'm telling you that this system needs to be ready," she interrupted, "and right now it's not." Mitchell watched her resume her detailed calibration routine, each movement practiced and efficient. She wasn't just maintaining equipment, she was preparing for something that required absolute precision under impossible conditions. "How long have you been using this specific system?" "Long enough to know its signal characteristics under every possible atmospheric condition. The record shows 247 confirmed intercepts. The record shows what it's allowed to show." The implication was clear. The official count represented only a fraction of her actual operational history. Mitchell tried to process the reality that she was potentially dealing with one of the most effective signals intelligence operators in military history, operating under classification levels that made her existence officially deniable. "Rebecca," she said carefully, "I need to understand the scope of what's happening here." "What's happening is equipment maintenance, Colonel. Nothing more complex than ensuring this system performs exactly as designed when it's needed most. But the operation tomorrow will require someone to intercept communications that most people would consider unreachable. And when that moment comes, this array will be ready." The quiet certainty in her voice was more convincing than any mission briefing or intelligence assessment Mitchell had ever received. She had spent enough time in intelligence operations to distinguish between confidence and competence. Rebecca Torres possessed both in extraordinary measure. "Is there anything I can do to assist?" Rebecca looked up, and for the first time since their encounter began, she smiled. It was a subtle expression, barely visible, but it completely transformed her demeanor. "You can ensure this conversation never happened, and if someone inquires about the system maintenance, tell them it was performed by properly authorized personnel." "You're not authorized." "Colonel Mitchell," Rebecca said, returning to her precise work, "authorization is administrative paperwork. Capability is what saves lives." Mitchell found herself nodding, though she wasn't entirely certain why. Everything about this situation violated every protocol she'd learned in 18 years of military service. But something deeper than regulations was telling her to trust this enigmatic woman. "The 89-kilometer intercept," she said after a moment, "is that actually achievable?" Rebecca paused in her calibration, examining a component for microscopic defects. At 89.3 kilometers through variable atmospheric conditions with multiple encrypted frequency-hopping targets, accounting for ionospheric interference, terrain reflection, and signal degradation. She set the component down and met her gaze directly. It was the only way to prevent an ambush that would have killed 12 American soldiers. "Jesus." "Divine intervention wasn't available that day," Rebecca replied with understated humor, "so I had to handle the situation personally." Despite the gravity of their conversation, Mitchell found herself laughing. The tension that had been building since she first discovered her began to ease, replaced by professional respect for someone who could maintain composure while discussing impossible intelligence operations. How many people know about your actual capabilities? As few as operationally necessary. And how many people need to know? Even fewer. Mitchell nodded, understanding the implicit requirement for absolute discretion. Whatever Rebecca Torres's true identity and operational history were, they required the kind of compartmentalization that could only be maintained through strict limitation of access. "The mission tomorrow," she said. "Will it be high risk?" "Colonel, everything I do involves risk levels that would terrify most people. Tomorrow simply represents a higher degree of complexity than usual." "For you personally? For me? For everyone whose lives depend on my accuracy?" Rebecca began running final system diagnostics with the same fluid precision she'd used throughout the maintenance process. Mitchell watched, fascinated by the speed and efficiency of her movements. Each test revealed perfect calibration, the result of countless hours of practice and intimate familiarity with the communication system. The diagnostic process revealed the true extent of her expertise. She didn't just know how the system functioned, she understood its electronic soul. Every adjustment was made with the precision of someone who had monitored thousands of signals through this exact equipment, someone who knew how atmospheric changes affected signal propagation, how different encryption protocols performed under varying interference conditions. "You know," Mitchell said, "in 18 years of military service, I've never encountered anyone with your level of capabilities. Most people haven't. Is that intentional? That's survival." The system diagnostics were nearly complete now, every component tested and verified for optimal performance. Rebecca worked without consulting any technical manual or reference guide. Every specification was permanently stored in her memory. As she made final adjustments to the antenna array, Mitchell noticed something that had escaped her attention earlier: a small scar on Rebecca's left wrist, barely visible but consistent with old shrapnel wounds, the kind of injury that comes from operating communication equipment under hostile fire. "Rebecca, can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask. Do you ever question the psychological cost of what you do?" Rebecca paused, her hands stilling on the control panel. For a moment, Mitchell saw something vulnerable in her expression, a brief glimpse of the human being beneath the professional operator facade. "Every time I intercept a signal," she said quietly, "but questioning the cost doesn't change the necessity." "And what makes tomorrow necessary?" "Intelligence that could prevent a terrorist attack on American soil needs to be intercepted." The cold precision of her statement reminded Mitchell exactly who she was dealing with. Rebecca Torres might appear to be a civilian contractor, but she was an intelligence asset as finely calibrated as the communication system she was preparing. "Will you be safe?" "Safety isn't a luxury people in my position can afford." "But you'll complete the mission successfully?" Rebecca looked at her with an expression that combined gratitude and sadness. "Colonel Mitchell, people like me don't measure success by survival. We measure it by mission completion and the lives we save by intercepting the signals others can't reach." The system was fully calibrated now, appearing exactly as it had when Mitchell first spotted Rebecca working on it. But she knew it was fundamentally different, optimized, adjusted, and prepared for whatever impossible task awaited it. "Is there anything else you require?" Mitchell asked. "Just your discretion and your trust." "You have both." Rebecca began shutting down the diagnostic equipment, her movements still precise and economical. The complete communication array represented millions of dollars in advanced technology, but she operated it as if it were an extension of her own consciousness. "Colonel Mitchell," she said, extending her hand. Mitchell shook it, noting the slight calluses that indicated extensive technical training and the steady grip that conveyed absolute confidence under pressure. "Rebecca Torres," she replied, "it's been a privilege meeting you." The privilege was mine. "And Rebecca." "Yes. Make the intercept count." She smiled again. that same subtle expression that hinted at depths and experiences she would never fully comprehend. Every intercept counts, Colonel. Tomorrow's just happens to count for more than most. As Rebecca prepared to leave, she paused at the doorway. Colonel, there's something else you should know. What's that? I have a twin sister. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. Really? She's here too, has been working on the backup systems in the adjacent facility. Another contractor? Rebecca's smile became enigmatic. Let's just say we're a matched set. What one of us can't intercept, the other can. We've been working together since we were teenagers, long before either of us officially existed. Twins in the intelligence community? It has advantages: redundancy, complementary skill sets, and the ability to be in two places at once when operations require it. Rebecca moved toward the exit, her footsteps silent on the tile floor. She'll be finished with her preparations soon. Tomorrow's operation requires both of us working in perfect synchronization. Mitchell watched as Rebecca disappeared beyond the security checkpoint, leaving her alone with questions that would never receive official answers. She returned to the computer terminal and reviewed the system service record one final time. 247 confirmed intercepts, maximum range 89.3 kilometers, statistics that represented intelligence gathered and lives saved by someone whose existence was officially classified beyond acknowledgement. Mitchell closed the file and initiated the security protocol that would erase all access records for this session. Whatever Rebecca Torres and her twin sister were planning for tomorrow, whatever impossible intercept they might need to make, it would happen without any official documentation or recognition. But she would remember. She would carry the memory of a woman who calibrated communication equipment like a sacred ritual and discussed 89-kilometer intercepts as routine operational requirements. 48 hours later, national intelligence agencies would quietly thwart a coordinated terrorist attack planned against 3 major American cities. The prevention would be credited to routine surveillance and provide no details about how the critical intelligence had been intercepted from impossible distances under impossible conditions. Mitchell would monitor the classified reports and think about a woman named Rebecca Torres, who didn't officially exist, operating equipment that had never been deployed, making intercepts that defied technical probability. And she would classify this encounter alongside all the other compartmentalized experiences that defined intelligence service at the highest levels of national security. Some secrets were worth protecting. Some people were worth shielding, even when protecting them meant pretending they had never existed at all. In the official maintenance log, the entry for that day would show routine service performed by authorized personnel. No names, no details, no trace of the conversation that had fundamentally altered Mitchell's understanding of the invisible operations conducted in defense of American interests. Rebecca Torres and her twin sister would join the ranks of ghost stories whispered among intelligence personnel. The operators who could intercept impossible signals, who appeared and disappeared like smoke, who carried secrets that could never be shared. And somewhere in a secure facility, a SINCGAR-SRT-1794 tactical radio would be waiting for the next time someone needed to reach out and intercept intelligence at 89 kilometers. Because some threats could only be detected from very, very far away, by someone who officially had never been there at all. The equipment would rest in secure storage, maintained to perfection, ready for the next impossible mission that would never appear in any official record, carried out by operators whose names were written in classified ink on documents that would be destroyed the moment their missions were complete. In the shadows of national security, some stories were never meant to be told, and some heroes were never meant to be known. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this.